Hi, my name is Hector Del Castillo, Chief Product Officer at BoldPM. Welcome to today's episode. And today we're chatting with Carl Pritchard, who is founder and principal at Pritchard Management Associates. Carl, how are you doing today?
I'm great. It's a beautiful day in LaVale, Maryland.
All right. Well, thank you. Can you tell us a little more about yourself and about your company?
Sure. I am the fun guy of risk management. I've been teaching project management for about a quarter of a century, and I thoroughly enjoy the idea of getting something done in the way it's supposed to be done. And realistically, if you're looking at what's my philosophy on project management, it's those three little words: get her done.
Sounds great. How have you been impacted? How has your business been impacted by COVID-19?
Um, well, frankly, all my in-house training has vanished. There's nobody who's hosting classes on site at this point in time. However, the side of the business that actually is virtual has blossomed. So there's a downside and there's an upside, because assuming that someday we actually go back to classrooms, the good news is going to be that I'll have also built up the whole virtual thing, just waiting for COVID to pass.
Yep. As a matter of fact, I do also a lot of in-person training. And originally at the beginning of the year, I had something like 100 training days that require me to do international travel. And the same thing, all of those have been gone. And now I had to actually reinvent my business model to make everything now 100% virtual. So I can feel your pain of doing that. Can you share with us, how did you get the idea of the book that you wrote about risk management?
I was actually pushed into a corner to write that book. My old boss, and no, it's true. My old boss, Ed, he ran into a problem when our risk guy left the organization. And when that guy left the organization, I went into Ed's office and I said, "Hey, Ed, who's the new risk guy?" And he said, "It's so funny you ask." And from there, I became the risk guy on this one particular contract. The client was not too happy with the fact they were getting kind of a ringer as the risk guy. And Ed said, "Don't worry about it. Carl's actually big on risk. In fact, he's writing a book." And we walked out of the meeting and I said, "Well, that's, what book am I writing, Ed?" And he said, "Risk management." And he said, you got 3 months. You can pull that off." And from there, it was at first just complete happenstance. But now that the book is in its 5th edition, it's used in a lot of college programs. And I am the risk guy. I even wrote that chapter for PMBOK 4. So it kind of happened serendipitously.
So were you already PMP certified at the time that you wrote the risk management book, or was this, because you also were a contributor to the original PMBOK, is that right?
Well, no, PMBOK 4th edition.
4th edition, okay.
The 4th edition is the one I contributed to. But yes, I was PMP long before I was anything else. I earned my PMP in 1992. I am PMP number 1049. There's a number
Whoa.
for you. Yeah, oh, I know. Everybody now is like a million but it's kind of a nice thing, because it's given me the opportunity to actually grow with the profession, because there weren't that many PMPs back then.
Interesting. So what would you say is the biggest difference between project and program management?
The big difference is project management is focused on process, and more process. Whereas product management, at least in my take on all this, it is focused more on outcome. And this is why I think the whole Agile thing has such appeal for everybody. And the reason Agile holds a lot of appeal is because the idea is, okay, let's move down a road where we don't rely strictly on the processes, we rely on getting deliverables produced. And that's why the flexibility that's been afforded by Agile has kind of brought it up into common use and common parlance.
Mm-hmm. And what about the roles between the project manager, a product owner, and a product manager? What is your experience when organizations have all three of these roles implemented, or do they?
Well, you're actually talking about something that's very scary. And the scary thing is, a lot of people, when they have a project manager, they'll say, "Oh, good, we'll just make you the product manager as well. And in fact, you can be the product owner." Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just nuts. And yet organizations do this thinking they're doing themselves a favor, cutting down on headcount, keeping everything in check, when the reality is you need those diverse opinions to actually formulate and form what is a cogent approach to whatever it is you're building.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that that's one of the biggest challenges of most organizations is they're doing resource allocation, realizing that just because there's a one word difference, right, between project manager, product owner, product manager, that they can be the same person. And usually what I find is that organizations will that is the beginning of the end, right? Because there's way too many things. The roles are too complex, and often the more stakeholders that are involved in consuming the outcome, which is the product, that's a lot of work for one person, and usually requires a team, not just a person, right? And I think that that's really the challenge for most organizations, is figuring out how to do resource allocation even though they have limited budget, as well as limited funding and time to execute on anything that they want to do that becomes a product.
Yeah.
What so the Can you tell us a little more about this particular workshop that's coming up that we're actually going to be doing together? Product management versus project management?
I think the real emphasis is how do project managers leverage what product managers do, and then flip that coin around, and it's can product managers take advantage of that project managers do. And just looking at the two sides of the equation, coming to the realization that then you can turn to a customer and say, you know, you're actually not talking about our project management approach here. You're talking about product management, and here's how, and here's why. And being able to express some of the value that's built when you have product management versus project management, or when you integrate the two, at least knowing this is what falls into this bucket, and this is what falls into that bucket. And as long as you've got that down, I think you're in much better fettle.
That's very well said. One of the things that I wanted to share is that you mentioned earlier that project management is all about process. And I think that it also has to do with the maturity of the two roles. Which one would you say is the oldest profession, project management or product management?
I'd argue in favor of project management, and just because you're the product management guy. And the reason I think project management has been around longer is anything you look at, you're looking at how did they do that? That's always the question when it comes to the pyramids, when it comes to anything of major scale. You always look at them and go, wow, how did they do that? And answering that question is a project management question.
That's for sure. And I think really product management is about what is it that we're going to build and why are we building it, right? It's not about the how at all. It's about what is it that we're going to build and why. And it starts with that. And even though people most of the time start backwards, so once they see something they like, they say, how did you do it, right? That's a question. And often that may be the secret sauce is, how did you actually raise that structure that nobody had done before? Or how did you accomplish this that nobody has done before? And they don't start with the why. And I think that product management is about understanding the why. Once you understand what are the things that you can build, and figuring out just because you can build it doesn't mean you should, right? And I think that's a difference, is that product is really focused on the why and the what, versus project is about how and what are the different options that we can do, and what are the trade-offs in all those different options as to how we implement that will impact what gets done first, the order of things, the cost, and the schedule, right? And lay it out as to knowing that now it's not necessarily going to be one thing, maybe a multiple phased approach to how you build something.
That's kind of interesting. Dr. J. Davidson Frame, the Dean of Project Management at the University of Management and Technology. Dave used to start every single project management lecture the exact same way. Stand up there and you go, all projects arise in response to needs. And this is where I think both practices, both product and project management, skip off the rails a lot of times. And that's because it's a function of what did we really need? We get so wrapped up in building with the product or with the project doing it this way that we're not wrapped around the one thing we should be wrapped around, which is what is the need we're serving? And if we're not serving a specific, direct, well-documented, well-captured, agreed upon, approved, and blessed need, well, then there we have problems.
Sounds great. Well, I'm really looking forward to this upcoming workshop and doing it with you together. And would like to thank you for being here today. And we'll be looking forward to seeing you, the audience, in the near future. And Carl, thank you so much for today.
Hector, audience, thank you.
All right. Take care. Be well.
You too.